Hello and welcome to another week of Tech Talk. How are we, gentlemen?
Very well, mate.
Right.
Another topic. Mike, what are we going to talk about today?
So today we're going to be talking about impregnating sealers, how they react to being exposed to different substances. There's a bit more of a finer point, but general discussion when it comes to impregnating sealers, solvent-based, water-based, you name it. So who'd like to kick off?
I just want to start off by saying that we're going to try and make this a short one today, guys. Don't go wide, all right? Try and get this pretty specific. Thank you, Mike. I'll start off and I'll give a bit of context to why we're talking about impregnating sealers. The main reason why we chose this topic today is because we've had a few conversations in the market in regards to what the limitations and benefits, I guess, are of impregnating sealers versus other sealers for one side of things. And what is it about impregnating sealers that gives us the impression that it is a safeguard from everything? Now, to give you an example, one of the conversations I had was an installer had a floor that got damaged by an oil stain after it had an impregnating sealer on it. Not going to say whose impregnating sealer it was that they were using, but they said they went back to the client and they said, oh, that doesn't look very good. And they did a water repellency test, if you like, a very loose test, and said basically, look, everything's doing what it's supposed to be. See, it's repelling the water. I don't know what I can do to help you. And of course, that's when the calls come to us and they start wanting to get some further information.
Because it's interesting, Josh, that you're talking about oil, because I think we've all certainly got in our speech and repertoire about tomato sauces and cat and dog wee and all these acidic things where you think oil would be in that sort of category.
Yeah, and look, it's not only cat and dog wee, Mike.
Any wee will do.
Of course, when I get calls about this sort of stuff, I actually lean on Tim because he's a bit more chemically oriented and has more of an understanding being involved in the development of our sealers. So, Tim, this scenario, I've got a floor, it's got an oil stain in it, but hey, when I put water on it, everything's repelling, so I'm assuming everything's fine. It's going to repel everything, right?
Yep, certainly has. End of the conversation. That's a quick tech talk. No, not necessarily. And I guess what people need to understand with impregnating sealers, they're a special type of product. Unlike a coating type system, which is a mechanical barrier between essentially the top of the coating and whatever is lying beneath of it, impregnating sealers don't ever prevent a contaminant being in contact with the finished surface. Okay? So that's probably the key thing to remember in all of these conversations, whether we're talking about oil, we're talking about water, whether we're talking about acidic, is that for a chemical reaction to take place, the two ingredients essentially have to be able to come together. And if they can, there's always a potential for a chemical reaction. And when we're talking about a stain, essentially we're talking about some form of a chemical reaction taking place between the staining agent, being the acid or the oil or whatever, and then the material that it's coming in contact with. And obviously that happens in a microscopic level and atomic level, but we're not going to go to that sort of detail. But our impregnators go into the concrete and they are essentially reacting within the structure of the concrete to create a repelling. They're essentially creating a charged surface. Okay, and so if you understand that you're essentially creating a charged surface in all the capillaries of the concrete, it also comes down to what's the charge of the contaminant coming in contact with it. Okay, so essentially what happens with all the capillaries and the pores have got this charge, whether it be a negative or positive charge, and that repels some substances. But let's just say you've got a positive charge there and all of a sudden you've got a negative charged contaminant. Well, they want to get together, okay? It's really good when you've got a positive charged particle or staining agent sort of coming up against it. But now you've got a negative one, they actually want to hang out. So there's a bunch of things going on at atomic level with these types of products. They are not chemically hardening in the surface, say like our densifier does, which actually occupies a physical space. They are reacting in the concrete and lining the pores and the capillaries to create a charged surface which rejects things. So depending on the nature of the actual staining agent, there's a bunch of things that can or cannot go on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And of course, when we then start talking about, okay, we've got water-based products and we've got solvent-based products, well, essentially what that does is it enables to use different base ingredients or raw materials. Okay, so obviously when you're talking about a water-based product, there's only so many things you can dissolve or have soluble in water. So when you make a water-based product, you're limited to the types of ingredients you can put in the water-based product. If you're using a solvent-based product, it's the same deal, okay? A water-based raw material isn't going to be that happy sitting in a solvent-based product. So you have this split between, okay, is it water-based or solvent-based? That's your first level of the decision-making process if you're manufacturing a product. And then it's, okay, well, if it's water-based, there's only certain things we can put into that. And of course, you're going to get different performance between a water-based and a solvent-based product, just based on the fact that there's different raw materials that are an option to creating your finished product. And they all have different properties. And part of it is understanding which one's going to work better or offer better properties depending on the application, the environment, and the outcome you're expecting from your sealer or your finished floor.
So knowing what we know about impregnating sealers and the environment we're working, what are some of the things that we need to look out for or ask our end customer so we can choose the right type of sealer for that application? What are some real life practical things we can ask for?
From a real basic filtering point of view, in our testing, generally speaking, there is a difference between solvent-based and water-based performance. And essentially, water-based products tend to have better repelling against, say, oil-based products, and the solvent-based tend to be more resistant against acidic-based, okay? And it doesn't matter which product I test, that tends to be the general rule. Water-based tends to hold out against oil a little bit better and a bit longer, and solvent-based, you're more acidic type of products as well. None of them, like I said, none of them remove that element that they don't separate the material or our finished product from the staining agent. So as soon as something can come in contact, depending on the nature of it and how it actually interacts with the concrete or the part of the concrete, because let's remember, the concrete itself is made up of different components. So, for instance, the aggregates in concrete are extremely hard and resilient materials. We're talking about, granites and very hard types of stone, which is not your traditional stone floor and benchtop type, your marbles and your limestones and so forth. We're using very hard aggregates, very hard materials, because it's a structural product at the end of the day. And then you have your matrix or your fines surrounding it, and they both have very different reactivity properties and offer different types of resilience. So am I making any sense there, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, far out. Well, I was suggesting keeping this really narrow and really easy, but it's making a whole lot more sense.
It felt like I was back in science class, in high school for a little while, but it did make a lot of sense. And it helps to understand the fundamentals behind the product and its limitations. So, well explained. I guess my attitude, or the way I see it, is if we are talking about an impregnating sealer, we've already made the decision that a mechanical polished concrete is the best overall result or overall choice for the application or the environment, okay? We shouldn't be having a conversation where we're going, these guys are spilling oil on it all day long, or it's, it's a highly acidic environment or something like that, like it's a charging station for a whole bunch of forklifts or that sort of area, and they're always going to have battery acid or whatever. We've already decided, in that case, we would be talking about an epoxy coating or a polyurethane or something like that that's highly resilient to the environment that it's in. So when we're talking about impregnating seals, I'm making that assumption all the time that we're talking about an environment where we've already decided that from a resilient polished concrete finish is the best solution, and nothing's a perfect solution, but it's the best solution, or it's the optimal or preferred solution for the environment compared to other alternatives. So we've already had that discussion with the client as to why we wouldn't do other things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like going, this is the best type of sealer that there is in the marketplace, and that's why I'm using this, but it's not fit for purpose, which is kind of like buying a Bugatti Veyron to tow your boat with because it's got the highest horsepower in the marketplace. That seems like it's the best car to use for towing because it's got more horsepower. Well, couple of thousand horsepower two-seater and no tow bar, still not going to work very well. And it's going to be useless on the boat ramp. But compromise has got to be made somewhere.
Yeah, so if there's a real problem with an impregnating sealer, my general response is it sounds like there's been an issue with the matrix used for the elimination or choice as to why we've ended up with this mechanical polish finish to begin with, right?
Let's say we went down the route of mechanically polished, and it is a residential setting. Part of it is the kitchen, and the other part is just the living space. Could you do the combination of, let's say, the water-based in the kitchen, more resistant to oils, and then rest of the floor, the solvent-based? And if not, why?
There's no doubt you could. You would, look, from a practical point of view, you'd have to do the water-based area first, because if you're going to overlap with your solvent-based, that'll still go over top of the water-based where it's been treated with water-based, but it's not going to go the other way around. Look, you're going to have some slight colour differences, because we know that with the solvent-based product that we have, we get a little bit more enrichment, a little bit more colour enhancement. But if that's not a concern or a consideration, there isn't really anything stopping you from doing a hybrid finish from that point of view. If that's if you're seriously convinced there's going to be that big a difference between the water-based product in that kitchen area as per your hypothetical example or not. So yes, you could. There's no reason why you wouldn't combine one or another that I can certainly think of anyway.
Excellent. I know it's a question that I've been asked.
We're bringing combos into floor sealing.
What's your recommendation for fabric protection in the lounge room, Tim?
I would just spray with a few light applications of Restore. That would be beautiful for dry on dry.
I've seen some contractors actually offering that on all the windows as well. Restore and Boost for protection. I'm pretty sure that's why they're doing it.
Free frosting.
Yeah.
We include the frosting at no extra charge.
It's okay to spray.
Still a super popular product though, Impregnating Sealers. Absolutely. To maintain that beautiful finished product that have worked so hard towards. But I've always described it as a bit of a Scotch guard, as say rather than going back to those blue suede shoes or that nice leather jacket you've got or something like that, you put your bit of a Scotch guard on. It gives you a bit of a fighting chance, but the last thing you want to do is be wrapping Glad Wrap around it with a topical sealer or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it isn't bulletproof, but it certainly gives you that fighting chance, doesn't it?
I still like to see you in a leather jacket wrapped in plastic.
The only product that doesn't give you that topical look, Mike, like you said, it's horses for courses. It's what you're after. And there's so many benefits to them, and we haven't even talked about why you would use an impregnating sealer over something else, but there are plenty of benefits, and I think it's just as important for people to understand those as well.
Absolutely. Is it getting to that sort of time where I need to go and impregnate my liver with beer?
That's where you're going with that, Mike.
Yeah. The very last part was very important, so yes. It is that time. Good topic.
Yeah, good topic, guys. And I think, as Tim said, we haven't even covered X, Y, and Z. I mean, look, always open for discussion. So always happy to get some comments down below or pick up the phone and give us a shout and some thoughts and things like that. Yeah, always good to get those calls. So very good.
Thanks, gents.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Absolutely. And you. See you guys.
See you next week.
Good talking to you. See ya.
Well, Mike, I've never actually impregnated a sealer before.
Meeting warning. That's the lie.
That's all the credit. That's all the credit we have left.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's put more money into this thing.